here's the city, nighttime views, and then we pan over. We got the ocean view. Hey everyone, I am back. So come on and get away with me on another travel adventure. This time we're headed to Cuba. Now, you know, I normally travel by myself if I'm not traveling with my children, especially on my birthday trips. But this time I was joined by my mother. She's actually the one who recommended that we check out Cuba because I was having a hard time on deciding where I wanted to go for my international birthday trip. And during the conversation I was having with her, she said, "Hey, let's go to Cuba and I'll go with you." And I was like, "Okay, well, let's do it." So that's how we ended up in Cuba. Now, before I get into the deets about this trip, this was a multi-destination birthday trip. So if you didn't get a chance to check out the short videos of all three destinations. So I started out in Tampa, then I spent 4 days in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and then I spent 3 days in Cuba. So again, if you didn't get a chance to check out the short videos, head on over to Blue Diamond Getaway's YouTube channel and the videos are there. All right, so let's get into it. As you can see, we are now checked in to our Airbnb. Again, we stayed in La Habana, Cuba, which is about 25 to 30 minutes away from the airport. The host of the Airbnb sent a taxi driver to pick us up from the airport, so that was very convenient. The Airbnb itself, very inexpensive. We were there for 3 days and the total was 323 USD. Now, Cuba, visiting Cuba as U.S. citizens. When you visit Cuba, please go with the primary intention of supporting the local people. Of course, you'll go on your excursions and do a lot of sightseeing, taking in the culture of Cuba. But your primary focus should be on supporting the local Cuban people because they really do need our support. So as you watch some of the footage that I captured, you'll be able to see the conditions of the island and also the needs, of the local citizens. Now, I do talk about what you'll experience as a U.S. citizen in Cuba. So this video is just to kind of prepare those of you that may have thought about visiting Cuba. I want you to be well prepared because we were somewhat prepared since this was kind of like a last minute decision. I didn't thoroughly do my research like I normally do when I'm traveling internationally. So we did run into some hiccups that caused a great deal of frustration, but we worked through it. And at the end of the trip, we were just grateful for the overall experience. Okay. As U.S. citizens, just make sure that you carry more than enough cash. You don't have access to any ATM machines. You can't use your debit cards. You can't use your bank cards. We are completely blocked out from utilizing U.S. funds in Cuba. And I do talk about that in the video. All right. Keep that in mind. Now what you're looking at and what you've been watching for the last few minutes is a day trip that my mother and I went on to Old Havana, known as Habana Vieja, which is the center of Cuba. This here is a monument dedicated to Mother Teresa. Old Havana is full of history and culture, so it's definitely a tourist destination you would want to check out if you decide to visit Cuba. Now, the initial intention of my mother and I was to visit Old Havana and just walk around, and do a little bit of sightseeing. But like any other country you visit, especially in highly tourist attraction spots, you'll be bombarded with people approaching you, offering you tours and everything else in between. We had a horse and carriage tour, which was pretty cool. I think this is my first time. I think this is my first time ever riding in a horse and carriage or on a horse and carriage. Now, as you can see, like I mentioned, these are some of the local neighborhoods in Old Havana where people live, and you can see the conditions of their dwelling and the businesses there as well.
It's who you are. Bahama must be a beautiful country too. Very beautiful. That's Bahama. And we share and we give just like the Cubans. We love your music. Yeah. How does that? I know you all look alike. Yeah.
Who? Oh, them three?
No.
All right, so we are walking in the middle of the streets of La Habana, Cuba. If you are an American citizen visiting Cuba, make sure that you bring enough cash that will help you to navigate during the time you're here, because the U.S. is completely blocked from using ATMs or using your credit or your debit card because of some regulation that was enforced by Trump through OFAC. So we have money, but we didn't bring enough cash. And because we are here to support the Cuban people, between, tipping and paying for food. We went to Old Havana today, did some things. We're running low on cash and we'll be here for like another day and a half. So right now, we're trying to decide on, do we go on our excursion tomorrow and starve, or do we eat and not go on the excursion? So right now, we are hanging on by a wing and a prayer. Hopefully, we're gonna go talk to some people and see if something could be worked out. I'll let you know. Anything you want to say? Listen. Grand Hotel. We're not allowed here. U.S. citizens are not allowed to. Well, we can eat here, but we can't eat here because it's government owned, and that will be out of compliance according to the category selected, support for the Cuban people. Americans can't stay here at all. So we're not invited. So I will tune back in and let you know how things worked out for us. All right. So we decided to go on our excursion. One of my mottos that I live by when I'm traveling, especially internationally, is that you never know when you'll get the opportunity to visit a destination a second time. So while you're there in the present moment, take full advantage of it. So with that, we went with going on our excursion. Now, before I move on, I want to expound a little bit on my prior commentary where I mentioned we weren't invited to the Grand Hotel. What I meant by that is because of the regulations that are in place for U.S. citizens, when you visit Cuba under the category support for Cuban people, you can only do business with or support businesses that are ran by local entrepreneurs. You cannot spend your money with government ran or operated establishments. Okay. And again, that is according to the OFAC regulation. You also have to document every place you visit, document the names of your hosts, how much money you spent. So you have to keep a travel log, a travel itinerary for up to 5 years, just in case you're audited. So the regulations within OFAC are very, very conservative, very stringent. Okay, so you want to make sure that you stay in compliance. So what we meant by we're not invited, what we really meant was we were unable to actually stay in the Grand Hotel as U.S. citizens. You can dine there, and this was communicated to us by our Airbnb host. You can dine there, but you can't stay there. In addition to, you can't use the ATM machines. You can't use your bank card and your debit card. Okay, so again, I can't stress this enough. Please make sure that you carry more than enough cash to take care of all of your expenses while you're there, and also to not only tip your servers and your tour guides and your hosts, but also just have some extra ones that you can hand out to a lot of the local citizens, because that is something that we experienced, especially as we were walking that particular strip. There were so many citizens on the road, and they kept approaching us, asking us for food, asking us for money, and it's just very painful when you have to tell them no. And we had to say no many times because, again, we were low on cash, and we had to stretch out what we had left. But my mother and I just kept saying how bad we felt, and knowing that we had money. You know what I mean? Like we had money. We just didn't bring enough cash. We should have brought maybe an extra $500 between the two of us, and that would have been great. Okay, so now on to our full day 11-hour excursion to Vinales Valley. We were picked up in a classic car, which I was so excited because I wanted to at least take pictures in or buy a classic car. But a classic car was our ride to and from Vinales Valley. So it was about a 2.5-hour ride to Vinales Valley, which is out in the country. We started out by just doing some sightseeing of the valley, taking in the beautiful panoramic views, and I know you saw that a while ago. And then we headed to the Indian Cave, where we took a boat ride through the cave, and you'll see that here in a minute. This is us actually going to the location where we checked in to get on the boat. But before we did that, we did walk through a cave that has been there for many, many years. It's amazing how they've preserved it over the years and turned it into a tourist attraction. You'll see some of that coming up soon. And then after that, we got on some horses, right? So we did a little bit of horseback riding that took us to the tobacco farm. And you'll see that in a minute. That was a lot of fun. We had lunch there. I don't know why I didn't record any footage of the lunch, but we did have the option of choosing between chicken, shredded beef, and fish. We had rice and beans. We had tostones. We also had salad. I went with the fish. My mom went with the shredded beef. Then after that, the tour guide told us a little bit about their farming process. And it's, you know what? The people there in Cuba are so mistreated. So what we learned is that many of them are actually, quote unquote, gifted land by the government, right? But in order for them to keep the land, they have to toil the land, maintain the land, produce, the products such as tobacco, some of the fruits and the vegetables. And the government takes, I want to say, like 90% of the proceeds, leaving them with only 10%. Talk about gaslighting. Oh my gosh. But anyway, that's another story. So we learned about the tobacco process. We also learned how to hand roll our own cigars. And you know, Cuba, they produce some of the best cigars. But guess what? If you are traveling from Cuba into the United States, you cannot bring back any Cuban cigars. Now, you can travel any other place in the world, but if you're traveling back into the United States, especially into Miami, you cannot bring back any Cuban cigars. I'm telling you, the restrictions are crazy. They're mind blowing. It's crazy. But overall, this was a very nice excursion. We really enjoyed this one. So I will end my commentary here and allow you to watch the rest of the footage. I hope that this vlog has been insightful so far. And again, if you plan on visiting Cuba, please just make sure that you do your research and take more than enough cash. Stay in compliance by only doing business with and supporting the Cuba people. Until next time, see you at the next getaway. Peace. Which one? This one? Okay.
Try with me a good quality Romeo and Juliet.
Okay.
Here we produce Romeo and Juliet, Cojivas Robustos, that is a good quality, Cojivas Espléndidos, and Monte Cristo. Okay? But the best quality is these three are good. Of course, every quality here are perfect, are very good. You know, but my favorite is occasion for women, for principiants, are better Romeo and Juliet because are very light. Okay? You know, you need to know that you don't have. Are so tiny, are so small.